From lesson 49, we're going to talk about what are called multiplying binomials. Now, we've already talked about what a polynomial is. Remember, a polynomial is just in the form of some number times a letter. You know, maybe we're using letter x, and then to some power. So any polynomial is in this form, and some examples would be 2x to the fourth, that's a polynomial. And if we have just one term, like this one is, that's called a monomial. Now, when we have a polynomial of two terms, maybe we have x cubed plus 2. So in other words, I have two terms here. Remember, this is called a binomial. And that's what we're talking about today, is when we're multiplying two binomials. So let's take a look at how we do this. Now, the method that we use enters different methods, but probably the most popular method to multiply binomials is called the FOIL method. Now, before I go into detail on that, let's talk about why it's called the FOIL method. The letters F-O-I-L stand for certain words, and that's why it's called the FOIL method. So as I look at in the red here, the letter F stands for the first term. So in other words, when we use the FOIL method, we got to remember that we multiply. It's all multiplication. And when we say the first terms, we multiply the first terms, and you'll see that in a little bit. So the F stands, all you have to remember for now is the F stands for the multiplication of the first term. Now to the right I have two binomials. I have 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. Now the first term in each of those binomials would be the 2x and the x. Now the O stands for the multiplication of the very outer terms. Now in the example that I have to the right, the very outermost terms are the 2x and the negative 3. They're on the very outermost of that problem. The I stands for the multiplication of the very inner terms. And the very innermost terms would be the 1 and the x. The L stands for the multiplication of the very last term in each binomial. So the 1 and the 3 are the very last term. So this is something definitely that you want to have in your notes, is write down the FOIL method for multiplying binomials and write down what the F, the O, the I, and the L stand for. So let's take a look at this to break this down a little bit. So I'm going to use the FOIL method to multiply these two binomials. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply the very first term in each. So I have a 2x and an x. The 2x is the first term in the first binomial. The x is the first term in the second binomial. Well, what's 2x times x? Well, what's x times x? Well, that's x squared, so it's 2x squared. So 2x times x is 2x squared. So I've taken care of multiplying the first term. Now, multiply the very outermost terms. So multiply the very outermost terms. So the very outermost terms of this problem would be the 2x and the 4. And they're both positive, right? So what's 2x? What's positive times a positive? Positive. So I'll write the plus. And what's 2x times 4? Well, 8x. So I've taken care of multiplying the very outermost terms. All right, now let's do the I part of this and multiply the very innermost terms. And again, both these are positive. That's a positive 3 and a positive x. Well, 3 times x is a positive 3x. So I've taken care of the very innermost terms. Now, last, I'm going to multiply or take care of the last term in each of these. So a positive 3 times a positive 4 is a positive 12. Now I can simplify the 8x and 3x because those are like terms. So my final answer is 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. And notice that I wrote this in descending order according to the variable x. Remember what descending means? Highest to lowest according to the exponent. So it goes an exponent of 2, an exponent of 1 there really, and then nothing. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's multiply these two binomials and let's write the final answer in descending order. Now notice again I've got the word FOIL written over to the right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply the first term in each. Let's see, 5 times 2, and they're both positive, right? Positive times a positive is positive. 5 times 2 is 10, and then x times x is x squared. So 5x times 2x is 10x squared. So we've multiplied the first term in each. Now, multiply, and again, I'm emphasizing that when you use the FOIL method, you multiply these terms, right? So now let's multiply the very outermost term in each of these binomials, the very outermost. All right, so I'm going to take a positive times a negative, which is negative, right? And what's 5x times 4? 20. 20x. All right, I've done the outermost terms. Now I'm going to multiply the very innermost terms. And the very innermost, the very inside of this problem would be the positive 3 and positive 2. That gives me a positive 6x. Now let's multiply the last term in each of the binomials, which would be the positive 3 and the negative 4. That's a negative 12. Now simplify. So I have 10x squared. Let's see, temperature drops 20, it's 20 below, goes up 6, it's still negative. 14x minus the 12. And I've written it in descending order. Okay, in example 2, again, multiplying two binomials. So I'm going to write the word FOIL over to the right, just so I remember what I do. Now this time I'm not going to underline the terms here like I did before. So I'm going to first of all multiply the first term in each. So 4x times x is 4x squared. Now I'm going to multiply the very outermost terms in each. So a positive 4x times a negative 5 is a negative 20x. Now I'm going to multiply the very innermost terms, which would be the positive 2 and the positive x, which is a positive 2x. And then multiply the last term in each. Positive 2 times a negative 5, negative 10. Now simplify. So you have 4x squared minus 18x minus 10. And I've written it in descending order. So as you get used to this, these problems really don't take too long. All right, final example that I have. Here I'm still multiplying two binomials. It's just written different. Remember when you square something, if I have 2 and I say I'm squaring it, I'm going to take the number in parentheses times itself, right? So it means 2 times 2. Well, up here, this means 5x minus 6 times 5x minus 6. That's what it means, and I'll stretch that my minus sign out a little bit. Okay, let's FOIL this. Let's multiply the first term in each. So 5x times 5x is 25x squared. Multiply the very outermost terms. Positive times a negative is negative, and 5x times 6 is 30x. Multiply the very innermost terms. Negative 6 times a positive 5x is a negative 30x. And then multiply the last term in each. The last term in each of the binomials. So negative times a negative is positive, and then 36. Now to end it off, simplify. So 25x squared. Let's see, temperature drops 30 more. It's dropped 60. And then the plus the 36. And that's our final answer in descending order. So this lesson, this topic is called multiplying binomials using the FOIL method.